so much of what this process is I am not afraid of the truth, no matter how complicated it is. I'm not scared of truth anymore. Bring on the complexity. I'm willing to deal with it. I'm willing to swim in it. I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm willing to be afraid. I just would rather have my truth.
There's this Joan of Arc quote that I always say for myself, but I'm going to give it to you too, which is, I am not afraid, I was born to do this.
Gabby Bernstein, a role model for spiritual seekers.
There's this like energy coming in that's like, this is, so you're the voice, you're the sister that is teaching, right? So it's like they see you as, and it's not just the Black community, it's women in general, but thinking about like the Olivia Pope role and being that like major.
Ideal power
Correct,
figure.
correct. But being that for the first time in television, right? So all of this is like, and you know this, but it's like, this book was that next level of you saying, okay, yes, I am in many ways like Olivia Pope, but I think you are. So don't take the dream away from me. But then also being like, and all this, right? And all this.
That we get to be fully human and superheroes, right? Like she was like the superhero version of me. She was that embodiment of the best, highest, most powerful, most fearless. But that to be fully human, we get to have our vulnerability too and our history.
And she didn't show hers very much.
She didn't. I mean, the one place was in the love story, right?
Yes,
like that was the one room where she wasn't always the most powerful person, as if Fitz was around. But on this deeper level, you know, like I share that Shonda never wanted that character to be a mom because there is this inherent vulnerability in being a mother, especially the mother of a Black child. You don't get to be Olivia Pope, powerful, fearless, you know, without vulnerability when you become a mom. So that was part of why she never, though I got pregnant, Olivia never was.
Yeah, chills.
Yeah.
How did it feel to be Olivia when you were pregnant?
So weird.
Yeah?
It was really hard. It really taught me how to grow my toolbox as an actor because I felt like I was violating her, like I was betraying her because she had this idealized body that I had worked so hard for, that to fit in the perfect sample size fashion, to walk down the hall in that perfect way. And in real life, I'm like waddling down the hallway and wider than ever. And so I really had to figure out how to, the bigger bags, the bigger coats, the boxes.
Lots of trench coats.
Yes, lamps, hiding behind lamps. So I had to figure out other ways to access her that were outside of that kind of idealized obsession about her body. And that, you know, her body was such a way in for me, that walk, right? Like that was how I found her. And I had to figure out how to find that same sense of confidence and power without it being about my body. So that was really interesting. It led me into like a deeper connection with her because I couldn't use the tools that I first found her with, but I still had to be her.
So would you be open to just talking a little bit for my audience? This is like self-help crowd. They talk about big, we call these big talks. There's like
I'm in the crowd, so I know who the crowd is.
You are the crowd. You're in the crowd. We are in the crowd together. The eating disorder. A little bit. So it's really beautiful that you're acknowledging how you had to be in your body, but not fully in your body.
Right.
Yeah. Is there any message for our listeners who are struggling with any kind of eating disorder, body dysmorphia, anything along the lines that you feel has been really healing for you?
A message.
Or experience that you've had?
I mean, I think one of the most important things that helped me just begin a journey of healing was to be able to talk about it. Like when I was alone with it and not like afraid to tell people that I was struggling, it just made it so much harder.
Right.
So I would say that's the first thing, right? Is to be able to admit it, not be alone with it, ask for help, be in community.
Yeah, fellowship.
Yeah, be in fellowship with other people who are suffering in similar ways. Because that for me was the beginning of the way out. And it was, I mean, really, my eating disorder, my relationship with food and with my body was the first thing that truly got me on my knees. It was the first thing that cracked me open to make room for a relationship with some power greater than myself.
Same with me for addiction.
Yeah. Like until then, I really thought it's up to me to fix this. I have to figure out how to fix this. If I work hard enough, if I try hard enough, if I if I figure it out, and it was the first thing that I was like, this is bigger than me. So to fix this, I'm going to need something bigger than me.
What's that relationship like in your life now, that higher power?
It is, it's, when I'm in a good place, it's the most important relationship in my life. And I try to spend time every morning in some form of prayer and meditation. Sometimes it's, on an ideal morning, it's like a 15-minute practice, and sometimes it's more of a 3-minute practice. But it is really like the first place. It's the first place where I can find myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weirdly, because it's a relationship with something outside of myself, but that relationship is, I think, the purest relationship I'm in, because it's a relationship where I'm really not pretending at all. I would say my marriage is the closest other relationship to that.
Nice.
But even in that, I feel like part of why my marriage is because we both go to God.
Yes. Oh, how gorgeous. I love that so much.
Let's just take a quick break to talk about how I can help you more with manifesting. If you're enjoying this video and you want to take your manifestations to the absolute next level, click the link in the description below and get my 2 free manifesting meditations. These are my absolute best manifesting meditations. I'm literally giving them to you for free. Click the link in my description.
So the experience of going to God throughout this journey, would it just look like a momentary prayer or kind of
on the book journey, or
throughout this journey of just uncovering and revealing?
Yeah. What did it look like?
Were you relying on it?
Yeah. We would do a prayer circle before every Q&A on the tour. I remember in one of my early conversations with you, mind blown, we talked about bringing angels with me on this journey. And you invited me into the idea that there might be angels and ancestors from my donor side.
Yes. Yeah.
And that blew my mind, because I had never thought about, I think about the gift of kind of my parental structure growing, that I have these 2 incredible parents, and I'm not, I often say I'm looking for my donor, but I'm not looking for a father. I have a dad. I love my dad. It's a complicated relationship, but it's beautiful. But I really do want this information about who the donor is. And if it comes with relationship, I'm open to that. I don't want to presume to know what God has in store for me, for us. I'm open, but I'm not needing him to be something to fill a void, which feels like a gift. But when you invited me into the wisdom that having this additional parental figure also meant that I had additional ancestors, additional lineage, maybe additional angels, I was like, oh my God, I felt so blessed by that idea and excited about that.
Paternal grandmother.
Yeah.
And it's also, trusting that the way we come into these bodies is a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And so while we might choose one person's body, maybe it was, just giving other people's examples, an embryo from somebody else. Right. So even the people who are surrogates, who are the facilitator, that's a soul contract with that spirit as well.
Even if it's not DNA,
Correct.
but that
even though they're just there to hold that
There's so
womb.
much fluid exchange and spiritual exchange that happens physically in the womb.
Absolutely.
It's so true.
And so spirit's going to choose their way in.
Mm-hmm.
And a girlfriend of mine who had she did a donor egg.
Yeah.
We look at her son and we're like, there's nobody else. She did so much IVF to get to that place where she took the donor egg.
Right.
But it's no, this is him. Porter's the only one,
That's
right?
He chose you.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman who donated that egg, she was part of that process. And my girlfriend thinks about her often, and it's she's the gift. She gave me this, right? So it's all collaborative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I kept, I was so kind of emotionally broken open by the process of sharing this book, but I kept doing these interviews where I feel like traditionally I was supposed to be crying, but the journalists were crying.
Yes.
Right? Robin Roberts cried and Oprah cried.
Robin always cries.
That's so sweet. Yeah, it's true. So I felt like,
but they were crying with you for sure.
But yes, good. It's good. It was I was in a space with people who were available and emotionally ready.
Yeah. Very emotional.
But the interview that I did cry was so unexpected because it was my friend James Corden, who's like, comedian, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and I didn't expect for it to be so emotional, that conversation. But he shared with me this beautiful story before we got on stage about some friends of his who used donor sperm to conceive their child. And at that sperm bank, even though it's all closed information, which is a whole other issue we can talk about, but the donor is allowed to write that child a letter. And the letter that the donor wrote said something like, I want you to know I am not your father. I am not your father. What I am is help. That there were two people who wanted to meet you and love you so badly. Those two people willed you into being, but to get there, they just needed a little bit of help. And that's what I was.
Wow.
I just was a little bit of help for your two parents, and you are theirs.
Wow.
And I love that so much. And he said, he was sharing it with me because he was like, I am worried. It was sort of, I didn't say what I just said to you a moment ago, but he said, I eventually said that to him. In the moment, he said, I'm worried because your life is so good. Like, I know you, I know your husband, I know your kids, I know your parents. Like, you are so whole. Your life is so beautiful. And I don't want you to find this donor and have them be like an asshole or a jerk. And then suddenly you feel incomplete.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want your goodness or your sense of peace to be defined by who that donor is, which I thought was such a loving, beautiful, vulnerable offering from him. And it was a great opportunity for me to really check in with myself and say, like, am I giving that figure that much power? And I really don't think I am.
You're not.
Yeah.
When I heard you talking about it before, that total alignment with, I want to meet him. He's not my father.
Yeah.
It's so clean.
Yeah.
And your intuition to connect with him is don't question that.
Yeah. I think there's stuff to learn. Like you were saying,
You're
I
so
like
clear
I
about it.
100% know what comes from my mother. I
Yeah.
100% know what comes from my dad. I want to know what comes from the donor.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a new opportunity to discover more about myself. And I am not, I mean, so much of what this process is I am not afraid of the truth, no matter how complicated it is. I'm not scared of truth anymore. Like, bring on the complexity. I'm willing to deal with it. I'm willing to swim in it. I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm willing to be afraid. I just would rather have my truth.
There's this Joan of Arc quote that I always say for myself, but I'm going to give it to you too, which is, I am not afraid I was born to do this. And as I watched you uncover all this and write all this and reveal all this and show up for all of this, it really is the message. It's, I'm not afraid I was born to do this. And back to your carrying a message for your lineage, your biological father's lineage, your mom and dad, and for your brothers and sisters throughout the world, and for me and for all of us who are being touched by it. It's I'm not afraid I was born to do this.
What a gift.
Yeah.
What a gift.
If you like this video and you want to get more Gabby, check out the next one right over here.